the way for the Chiefs to handle their end of it, which is beating Buffalo for starters on Sunday when the Bills, very hungry, desperate Bills team comes to town, is how do you get Rashee Rice more involved in other ways than he already is, right? He's coming off a 60-yard or so performance. We know Travis Kelce led the team in receiving with 81 yards. But is there more to do for Rashee Rice this particular season to help this offense? And we know that this team doesn't take many deep shots to begin with. And when they have, in the two biggest moments, really, whether it was the Eagles game or the Packers game, they've taken the deep shot with who? Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
How's that going,
And one
just
was,
real quick.
Yeah, and one was a drop, we all know, against the Eagles. The other one, I don't know if he would have caught it anyway, but it was pass interference. We don't need to go back down the referee road like I'm sure everybody was talking about yesterday. But he obviously was held on that particular play.
Okay, so I'm going to say this without it being like a criticism of what they've done so far, because I actually think with a rookie wide receiver like Rice, and I've come to accept the way that they bring wide receivers along in this offense. I mean, Tyreek Hill only managed 550 yards for this offense in his rookie year. Rashee Rice has already outperformed that. By the time second year rolled around, Tyreek Hill was a 1,000-yard wide receiver and one of the best in the NFL. So I assume that they're capable of eventually bringing someone along. They are missing one element from Rashee Rice's game, and I'll call it fair that they have not incorporated it yet, but it's time. So there are about 25 wide receivers with Pro Football Focus grades above 80. And I'll credit Sean Newkirk put out the stat, and I've done some more research on it. But 25 wide receivers or so with a Pro Football Focus grade above 80. So, like, wow, these are really good wide receivers. He has the lowest average depth of target out of any of them. They're throwing to him about 1 or 2 yards down the field.
That's kind of the story of Mahomes' offense this year, though, because of the wide receivers, right?
It is, and there's no doubt. And that's certainly the way they have to play offense to a point because of the way teams play them on defense. But it's time. They obviously have deep routes in their system. They pretty much go to two players. They go to MVS, as you had previously mentioned, or Justin Watson. Add this wrinkle. Add this element. Take the easy passes that they're giving you with Rashee Rice and put those in the hands of Justin Watson or MVS or Sky Moore or somebody else. We just talked about this with the volume game. Now that you got the volume up 2 weeks in a row, right? He's getting targeted. Every single one of those targets is turning into a catch. Those catches are turning into yards. Great. One last wrinkle. Now run him downfield. Put him downfield. And I know that the speed game is at least a portion of this, but and I'm not calling him Jamar Chase. But Jamar Chase is a possession. That's true. Jamar Chase is a possession wide receiver. His average depth of target is very similar to this. He runs 5, 6, 7 yards. They still run him deep.
Yeah,
Jamar Chase isn't 6'9".
Yeah, some of this. So certainly MVS has been the guy they've kind of used in deep routes, and it obviously has not worked. There's been very few opportunities for a variety of reasons as well. We know MVS is a little bit bigger, also a little bit quicker as well, and that's probably part of the equation. But you mentioned Jamar Chase. What's the comparison, though, as a different Cincinnati wide receiver we've been saying for Rashee Rice? It's not Jamar Chase.
Tyler Boyd.
It's Tyler Boyd. And
the stats are very similar.
A lot of this goes back to what I had said for a couple weeks is we're all optimistic, as we should be, on Rashee Rice. And he's clearly their best wide receiver. It's not even close. He is someone that everybody should feel very good about the future to build around Rashee Rice in this future wide receiver room for years to come. No doubt about that. But this part is probably where I think there's such frustration with the current group that I believe, still overinflate what Rashee Rice is. I think the kid is very talented. I think he is likely a wide receiver number 2 long-term, if we're being honest with ourselves, of how a wide receiver room should be in the future for Kansas City. And so there's some balance. Yeah, should they utilize him on deep routes more? Sure, but this team in general, there's only like 2 or 3 a game where they're actually getting opportunities down the field, if that.
And those should be Rice.
To begin with, right? And so I think, this goes back to everybody else is so disappointing that we got to be careful. Let's not talk about Rashee Rice like he's a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL, okay? He's not. I don't know if he'll ever be that. And that's fine, by the way. If he's not, he can still have a pretty damn good career if that's the case. But this is where, there's the balance. Do we think he's likely to be a Tyler Boyd type? Or now you're talking, I know you're not directly, but talking about Jamar Chase, okay? We got to be realistic.
I'm talking about usage.
Yeah,
especially because of he is their Jamar Chase from a usage standpoint and should be. I'm not talking about the talent level, but the way and the amount they use Jamar Chase is the way and the amount they should use Rashee Rice just based on the other guys available.
Yeah, that was the line. Like, I think we both agree with you, Gold, that his ceiling is a number 2 wide receiver down the line, but right now he's their number 1 wide receiver. So
sure,
as a result,
you got to play him that way. It's like Adam Thielen for the Panthers, if you'd rather, you know?
Right, yeah. You have to send him down the field, and he's not going to be Jamar Chase in all likelihood. He's not going to be Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs, but until you get a guy that can be that, whether it be in the draft or free agency, he's the guy right now. So my thing is, MVS, it hasn't worked, so why not try at least one or two of those with Rashee and just see what happens, because you have really nobody else to go to.
The problem is if you don't, then you just don't have a deep passing game, and you are just like 6 yards a time forever. You are just bailing. Like, because if you don't at least run somebody else down there, whether it's Rice or somebody else, then you are completely abandoning the deep passing game. Because other than that, it doesn't work. This is like the 4th straight game. I watched a guy on a deep route that is Justin Watson or MVS, always the same 2 guys, run inside to the safeties versus outside. I don't know how many times Mahomes has to throw that ball to the outside, because that's clearly where his instinct is to throw it, and not watch a wide receiver ever go the other way. It's like the 4th consecutive game. I'm going nuts. Like, can we just have one receiver? I even heard Tyreek Hill talk about this. Now, his speed changes it, and he fixed it. Tyreek Hill had a pass that he said at first in the game, he thought Tua threw it the wrong way because Tyreek Hill went to the inside. And he's like, I looked at the tape and I should have gone to the outside. He's just so fast it didn't matter. He caught the ball anyway, and it was a 70-yard touchdown because he's Tyreek Hill. Like, MVS can't make up that difference. Sky Moore can't make up the difference.
Rice.
Justin Watson can't. I'll at least I'd like to find out if Rice can. From a speed-wise, he can't. But, like, that was like I had mentioned with MVS. You weren't here yesterday, but, like, honest to God, some of the things that bothered me, because he was definitely pass interfered, whatever. Like, it's definitely the case. There were a lot of calls that were missed in that game. I don't think it's a single reason why they lost the game, whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, can he jump? Can the man jump? Is he capable? I want somebody send me a video. I demand video evidence that MVS is capable of physically leaving his feet. Because all they ever talk about is how tall he is, and I've never seen him actually play like his height matters. He plays like his speed matters. He's played like that his entire NFL career, that his speed matters.
Yeah, he's never been a physical receiver.
I've never seen him play.
That's not who he is. That's not who he is. Yeah.
They always mention his height, but he never. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't jump, or you don't play big, or you don't, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I just think that I'm not even talking about every play. Like, this is not like a greedy thing. Just the next evolution of Rashee Rice, Gold, is to, of those like 5 deep routes, those big posts, big corner routes they're running with these guys, Rice should be getting one of them. Give him a chance on those routes occasionally too.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what the breakdown is of has he ran any of those routes, because we're only counting the ones where we know Mahomes threw the ball and it was incomplete to MVS. Like, for all we know, I don't know. Like, somebody can break this down. I don't have the answer.
When he's running those, is he the lead target?
Has he ran those routes and it just wasn't there? The ball wasn't thrown, and we're only counting the ones where Mahomes threw it. I don't know the answer. It could be 0. The answer could he also has ran it once or twice a game and it's just not there, and so we just don't know. That's the one thing we have to keep in mind with this as well. I don't know if the answer is that he's never ran a deep post route for Patrick Mahomes in his NFL career. I'm going to guess the answer is that it's not 0.
I'm assuming he's run more than one, but he's running less than MVS. I'm pretty confident about that.
I think that's fair as well.
Would you mind even like him, say he's doubled, would you mind Patrick would you mind just one time taking a 50-yard shot? No. And if it gets picked, you know what? It gets picked.
No, I wouldn't. Not if it were Rice. I would mind if it was MVS.
Okay.
I'd mind a lot.
The problem they have now, and this goes back to when we were discussing the rest of the AFC, right, and the frustration and the flaws of this football team, and then compare it to everybody else, and how there's not this one dominant team. The difference to that point is you say, hey, just throw up the 50-50 ball, you're good with it. I understand. This team has to win the turnover margin because of how much difficulty they have in the red zone with this offense.
Is it as simple? I haven't looked up. Are they just 8-0 when they've lost the turnover margin and 4-0 when they haven't?
I don't know 100%. Yeah, we can look that up real quick. I don't know 100%.
I know they're 0-1 when they played Denver and 0-2 because of
Packers.
the Packers.
Yeah. And the Lions week, I'm assuming that. Yeah, I mean, I'm
0-3. Okay, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's exactly what's happened. Spoiler: you turn the ball over a lot, you're probably losing football games. Like the oldest, like cliche thing, win the turnover margin. But this year's team can't overcome that the way prior offenses, I should say, were able to overcome that. And that's exactly. I mean, that interception even on Sunday night, the Chiefs had about 5.5 on the clock. They were moving the ball. They just got a nice 15-yard penalty. They were midfield roughly, almost
down 5.
Down 5. Yeah. It was looking like, they're going to run the clock all the way down and have a chance to win this game. That interception happened. The game was over. I mean, I know they had a chance, but that was the game. That was the game because this year's team, unfortunately, doesn't mean they can't win games. This is why in the playoffs, like the notion that they just can't win enough games to get to a Super Bowl, I call BS on that. The difference is in a playoff game this year, if they turn the ball over twice, they're losing. They're losing. In the past, two turnovers, Mahomes and the offense can overcome that. That's the difference. They can't do that in this iteration of this team. But if they play a clean game, they can beat anybody. Absolutely. And that's why they still have a chance. That's why I'll completely push back on this idea that they can't get to a Super Bowl still and they're screwed and they suck. That's stupid.
I think it's just hard because this is, like, if we ranked out the last, let's include the 5 years they've been in the AFC title game, hosted it, and this year, where would you rank this team amongst the ones for talent,
man.
For how good you think the team is?
Yeah,
it's probably 4th, man.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. It's in the bottom portion.
It's weird because
of this ranking system.
The defense is great. They're coming off their worst game, but the defense is great. They're going to get Nick Bolton healthy at some point. He'll be back.
I also know they won 2 Super Bowls that year, so it's going to be very hard to put them above those teams.
Sure. And so
third one they went.
This is where it's funny because I think the answer is obvious based off of the reaction and how we've all covered the team this year.
They would all say 5.
Well, they would say 5, but also
or 6.
Also, during those years, right, the frustration was the defense, right? Like, this defense is going to prevent them from winning a Super. This defense is going to prevent Patrick Mahomes winning. And then this year, we're going to say the offense is going to prevent them from winning. I'm just saying. And so if I could flip it, right now I could flip it, and I can tell you once again the Chiefs were the second best offense, but the defense was 20th, you would all sign up for that right now, wouldn't you?
Or 11th in this case.
People would sign up, 11th if we're – but that's my point is it's funny how we would flip it, right?
I think this is better than 19 or 18 when they had just no defense at all, but they were still the league's best offense. This is a better overall team with a better chance to win the Super Bowl because that defense really was going to hold them back. But they're not better than any other team that they've hosted the AFC title game with. And now, unless they start playing dramatically better on offense.
They can lose to, theoretically, they can lose to any of these playoff teams, whereas in the past you would say, there's just no way.
There's a handful they can't lose to.
And this go-around, when they are in the playoffs, and they are hosting at least one playoff game, and I still think they've got a path to be the number 1 seed, and therefore host 2 of them, potentially. Those games are going to be much more coin flip-ish than they have been because the margin and the gap between them and everybody else doesn't exist. That's the difference. And that's what's frustrating, right? It's unique. It's different than how we've been talking about this.
Okay. Here, I've got the numbers.
You had it up?
Yes, I did. Okay. The Lions lost. They split. Had the same amount of turnovers.
Okay.
Jags dub, they were -2. The Bears dub, they were split. The Jets win, they were -1. The Vikings win, they were +1. The Broncos win, they were +2.
Oh, the Broncos win, they were +2. Yeah,
Chargers dub, they were split. Broncos L, they were -4. Dolphins W, they were split. Eagles lost, they were -1. Raiders W split. Packers lost -1. So recently,
split or win the turnover battle, win, and lose the turnover battle, lose.
They have lost in one, but that was early in the year. Anytime that they've lost recently, they've been minus on the turnover margin.
Shocker.
They can't overcome it, and someone else pointed out it's fair. It's the turnovers, but also self-destructing in the red zone penalties, and this offensive line. Getting called for holding calls inside the red zone.
Is there any chance that we're going to find out like Pacheco's suspended for a game or anything? Is he going to get a game for that punch?
Suspended for that. That's insane.
I'm not saying he should. I'm just asking Willie.
I don't even think they're investigating it.
I think he's just going to get a nice little letter from the league and a nice little
fine, maybe
$30,000, $40,000 fine or something.
Fine? Okay.
He was fantastic in the game. Made a mistake obviously at the end of the game and thought the game was over and frustrated and should never have punched the guy.
Ref had just gotten the call right. He never even throws that punch.
That's also true. But Pacheco was awesome in the game. I'm sorry. Like,
Butterfly
it goes
effect.
back to we've discussed, like, keep giving him the ball. And, like, he was great.
Oh, yesterday,
he was great.
my entire stance right
So
now
good.
is
He's so good.
there's only 3 people you need to worry about the offense, and literally don't let anyone touch the ball. It is Rashee Rice, Pacheco, and Kelsey.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Nobody else. That
Well,
works.
yeah.
That is a functioning offense. Don't
was,
even worry about anybody else who plays for your
And
team.
that was coming off the Raiders game. I mean, it was pretty clear how they gave the targets. Like, you looked at even if you just box score watched the Raiders game, and you're like, oh, the most productive guys and the guys that got the most targets, Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rice. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's really not, I mean, easier said than done in terms of getting them the ball, but like, as far as who you should be trying to get the workload to, yeah, it's pretty obvious. This was a game where they didn't even have McKinnon, so they weren't even tempted to try to give more touches to another back. Clyde, of course, mixed in a little bit. You have to. And your number 2 back has to take some snaps away from Pacheco just from a snap percentage. But Pacheco was awesome. I mean, he was flat out awesome, and that has to still be a key part. And the Chiefs were able to run the ball on Green Bay, and they're going to have to do that against Buffalo on Sunday. I know we got all week to talk about that game, which suddenly
we're going to talk
is a lot more stressful.
Probably start on it tomorrow
Yeah,
because
a
it
lot more
becomes a much
stressful.
more important game.